And let's join the news conference.
Je pense qu'en fait, pour plusieurs d'entre vous, on est vraiment dans le secteur, dans le centre-sud, mais c'est aussi le secteur des médias ici. Comme bien des citoyens, on s'est réveillé avec une scène, somme toute, assez
we woke up this morning to this impressive scene. Water running not far from here, as you can imagine. The crisis cell jumped into action. And I'd like to thank them, as was the case last week as well. Last week, very busy with flooding. Fire services, public safety, as well as the police were involved. Teams from the city of Montreal. And I'm happy about Ms. Morissette, who's been an excellent leader who fully understands all of the issues. Anything related to piping, water, and drinking water in Montreal. To give you a status of the situation, I know that you've been here for a few hours already. So you've been following the situation, and you've noticed that it has dropped in height and there's less water in the streets because we know where it's happening here. Situation is under control, but not resolved. We're far from that. The important thing this morning is to ensure that things are secure, that people are safe in this area, and that's what we're continuing to do. Fire services and SIM services are continuing to going door to door and asking people to leave their homes if they are at risk. That was very important to do. Red Cross, of course, one of our partners that has been working with us since last week on the flooding. People will be relocated and be able to sleep in a dry space this evening. Same thing in other areas that were affected last week in Montreal. Even though the water level has gone down, we're really asking people to let our response teams repair the water main break. Please respect those safety perimeters. Do not cross over any barriers, and I'd go even further to tell everyone to stay away from the area for the entire day. We'd like the teams to be able to work and repair as quickly as possible, but it's going to take several hours. We do hope it will be quickly, but for the time being, for the entire day, please avoid coming to this area, whether by bike, car, just don't come. For people who live in the area, it's important to note that water quality has not been effective. There's no boil water advisory, but if that changes, we will of course let you know. We will put that on our websites and through the media. So that's the three pieces of information I wanted to share. Over the next few hours, it's going to be about cleanup and trying to determine the cause, and we'll be able to give you more information as we get that. So now to Mr. Guilbeault, when it comes to fire services and public protection. Well, when it comes to fire services, we're working in 3 phases. One, of course, is evacuating people for their safety. We want to make sure that everyone is safe. We reviewed any building that had water inside to make sure there was no danger. That was stage 1. Currently, you're seeing that the leak is not yet done. What we're doing is a survey. We have teams on site and about 30 vehicles on site, and they're going around conducting a sort of census. This is to ensure that everyone has indeed been evacuated and is safe, and assessing which buildings have been affected. The next stage, once that's under control, is to go into recovery mode. Third stage will be later in the day, and that will be to ensure that people can go back into their homes safely, ensuring there's no danger to the structure, that no infrastructures have been damaged. So when it comes to fire services, that's what we're doing at the moment. To repeat the mayor's message, just because you're seeing less water in the streets doesn't mean that everything is done. Allow us to do our work. Please respect the barriers, and that's what the work is in terms of fire services now.
Well, yeah, sure. So the situation has been evolving. As you can see, the water is There's less water in the streets, and even the geyser is less important, but it doesn't mean that the work is being done. I mean, we're in a better position, that's for sure, and I want to thank the firefighter for all their work this morning. What they've been doing today, like they've been doing in the last week with the flooding, is to go and meet citizens and give them support and help. So I want to tell that all the people here have been met. If some people are worried about where those people might sleep because they had to evacuate all the basements, well, the Croix-Rouge will be supporting us like they've been doing in the last week. As well, there's the quality of water is fine, so you can drink the water. If it changes, we will inform the population, but so far so good. Last thing is that even though there's less water in the streets, it doesn't mean that it's all good. So we need to, la sécurité incendie is asking everybody to follow the different instruction. There's ribbons that says like don't go in, and even if there's no water, please respect that parameters because it will help them to do the work. So of course in the next coming hours and days, we will be able to share more about what happened. Or we know, it's a big conduct. I didn't say it in French, but it's a huge one. It's 84 centimeters. It's almost a meter. Inches. Oh my God. C'est pas pareil. Woo! Une chance que ouais, merci. C'est énorme. It's a huge one. Why 84 pouces. Oui. Alors c'est énorme. So this is why, and this conduct gives water to the east of Montreal. So this is why the work needs to go roughly, rapidly, in a good way. And of course, this is why we're asking everybody to respect the parameters.
Just as for the fire department, the first thing we did this morning is we evacuated all the buildings that were involved in the flood. And as we're speaking right now, we're doing door to door to make sure that all the buildings, to know how many buildings are are flooded by this event. And the third part that we will do is after that everything is under control and set up, we're going to have to go door to door to make sure that people can go back in their homes and everything is safe, talking about electricity, talking about structure of the building. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to have to do it. We have a lot of hours in front of us, and I would like to say again, respect the perimeters. That is important for us to have a place to work. It's not because you don't see water in the street that everything is over. So let us work. That would be very, very kind of you if you can help us.
Merci beaucoup. Avant de commencer la période de questions, je vais inviter évidemment,
Before questions,
Madame Morissette, de s'avancer parce qu'il va y avoir des questions qui
we'd like to pass to Ms. Morissette.
Pour respecter l'ordre, on va commencer en français. Je vais commencer.
And we're going to start in French.
Avec le devoir, Madame Carreau.
Oui, bonjour. Est-ce qu'on sait quel âge avait la conduite? Oui, la conduite en question, c'est une conduite
Yes, the water main in question was installed in 1985. It's 84 inches. We're going to try and determine the reasons why it broke, and it's important to mobilize and identify which main, which broke, which valve needs to be closed. And our teams have been there for over an hour and a half. And so they have been shutting down valves, and we're seeing the pressure of water has decreased. So we want to take the time to try and identify the correct valves. Question, it is a large water main. Have we seen this before in Montreal? Answer, we have had a few breaks in very large water mains over the years. Perhaps you don't recall, but that means that our responses were good. We have programs that allow us to inspect the water mains, and we always try to stop them before they break. So we've seen that there have been fewer large breaks in Montreal, which is good news, but we have many kilometers of water mains underground, so we always need to be monitoring and on top of it. But this is not the first time we've had such a large water main break. Question, how long are we talking? Answer, I can't give that information at this time because we have not excavated and cannot determine the amount of work required.
Maintenant,
For
on va
sure,
être
it will
capable,
be a few days.
En fait, la beauté du réseau à Montréal, depuis les derniers 15 ans, on a travaillé à sécuriser le
But
réseau
we've been doing a lot of work in the last 15 years on the network in Montreal to loop a lot of our pipes and water mains. So we have a backup system, and this has allowed us to really be able to make sure that we can continue to have water in these kinds of situations. Right now, we're confident that we'll be able to shut it down. We'll be able to analyze and then get our repair teams in there without having a water shortage. Question? Things have been quite difficult recently with a lot of flooding. Answer? Yes, I would say that as a mayor or any elected officials, we find ourselves in this situation with regards to flooding. I know it's especially difficult for residents because we see all of these impacts of climate change. But we're going to be seeing more episodes of large amounts of waterfall, and that continues to put pressure on our water main system. But when people are woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning by firefighters and told to leave their homes, well, what can we tell them? We know it's difficult psychologically. This area was very deeply affected by rainfall water 2 years ago, and this morning I learned that this happened again, but for a completely different reason. So we're reacting, but of course it is very difficult. It's difficult for me, and it's difficult for residents who are often feeling that they're going through these periods more often, and it's morally difficult. You said that there won't be a lack of water because of the reservoir currently, but what could happen over the next few hours? Answer, yes, the situation is under control, and we have very high water levels in the reservoirs. So we have a certain amount of redundancy that will allow us to continue to provide water. There's a parallel system. Yes, there are different, just like with electricity, that there might be different power stations. We have the same thing here of other large-sized water mains. I always have at least 2 that are feeding each area of the city. So that ensures that we can close one water main by still continuing to provide water to that area because of the loop system.
Présentement, tout à fait, oui.
Merci beaucoup. 2, 3 dernières questions en français. Oui, du côté de nouveau.
Pourquoi on a laissé l'eau couler aussi longtemps? Parce que les images étaient spectaculaires. On voyait le geyser. Tout le monde se demandait pourquoi on n'avait pas tout. Ben, si on pouvait, on le ferait, là. Vous comprenez bien que s'il y avait juste un petit switch, un petit robinet à fermer, on le ferait.
It's not just a matter of closing a tap.
Donc, on parle d'une conduite de très grand diamètre.
So we're talking about a very large size diameter conduit, 84 inches. So we can't just close it like the tap. But we are mobilizing hydrology specialists who will look at the particular hydraulic models and identify the sequence in which these valves need to be closed. We'll do that in a controlled manner and also control the speed so that there's not a further break. So this is done in a very controlled manner. And each valve requires 800 turns to close, so it could take several hours to close a valve. That's why it takes so long. But I can assure you that teams are there and working on closing the valve since this morning. What's the link between last week's rainfall and this break? Answer, at the moment, I don't see a direct link between that rainfall and this break. They're 2 completely different issues. So, yes, wastewater systems are affected by intense rainfall, but the water main system is completely separate. I don't see any direct link.
Comme vous pouvez imaginer, mon horaire de mairesse,
As you can imagine,
plein de rencontres, plein de choses qui sont mises en place, mais Je pense que les Montréalais le savent, là, ça fait quand même quelques
A lot of
années
things are
que
going, but I think that Montrealers know that for the last few years, I've been standing by them through many different events, whether that's flooding or heat waves. I want to repeat that at the command post, it's not exactly the same thing that was happening as last week. And I understand that residents want to see the mayor. And it's important for me to see all the work that's being done out in the city when there are these difficult incidents. So it's important for me to come out and see how things work and what's going on. As it was explained, how the valve is closed. It's not magic, but it's really quite incredible. So yes, I am the mayor, and we decide which places to go. But you'll remember the really heavy rainfall that we had 2 years ago, where we had a month's worth of rainfall in 2 hours. And that happened last week as well. So we decided to set up a parallel network to act as like a sponge, and that's under construction. So I understand, but the work is being done, and it's been going on for years. So right now, the issue that we're having with the water main is huge, and it's complex. But people want us to have a good system, but it takes work. And I'm not trying to gain political points when I'm talking about the work that needs to be done, but it's to make our system more resilient, to create more infrastructure and prevent problems. So I'll repeat that in English after.
What can you tell us about why this can't be sort of capped in a way, and why it's flooded into the streets, and when it can sort of recede?
Right. Are you good with that? It's a very large pipe. It's an 84 inches pipe that has broken. So the first thing we have to do is we have to have an engineer that determine which valve to close, and to take the time to close one after the other, so that we don't break other things in the distribution system. The last thing that we want is that manipulate the valve and break it. So it takes time. We have about four valves to close, and we have to do one after the other. And there's about 800 tours to be able to close the valve. So it takes 1 or 2 hours per valve to close. So that's why it takes time. But we have to take that time to plan carefully and to make sure that there will not be any other break at the same time, which would make the situation much harder. But everybody is, since very early this morning, people from the drinking water plants, the people from the distribution system, the engineer, the people from the arrondissement Ville-Marie, they are all mobilisés, I don't know the word in English. They're mobilized to make sure that everything's under control, that people are gonna still have water, and that we can securely close the pipe, and then we will excavate and find how we're gonna proceed for the reparation.
Just to know about the power grid, how is this affecting? I know the lines are underground, but the power's off. Maybe
Why we shut off the electricity?
Yeah, does it affect the power grid in any way?
What is a power grid?
Like the underlying.
Oh, underline. Okay, for the electricity, we always cut the electricity to make sure that there's no problem with the water. So what we do is we call it au Québec. They shut off the area, and then when we work with them, we try to get smaller and smaller as the electricity comes back. So as for now, we have to make sure that everything is safe for the electricity before putting it back. So that's what we're working. Right now, the Montreal Fire Department is in coordination with all the other services. They have a reunion right now. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay, CTV Global, CBC.
Okay, so I just want to ask, the quality of the water that's spewing out into the street? We're talking about drinking water, or are we talking about sewage water? Like, how dangerous is the water, or is it safe water?
Right now, we are talking about drinking water. The water that you can see on the street is drinking water. It comes from the drinking water plant. It goes through the large pipes. Right now, the water quality is totally good in Montreal. There is no boiling advice at all. If the situation change, we don't think so. But if it does, we will make sure that we send the information. But right now, the water is safe to drink, and we are carefully looking at the situation.
And Madame Marias, you maybe speak to the people who live just east of here, where the water is supplying them. Will they have a water supply? You know, do they have a water supply now? Will they have a water supply in a couple days?
Je vais comme laisser. Well, at this point, I mean, what we want to make sure is that they're safe, and if there's in terms of water, if there's a need to give water if they come back in their apartment, because so far we've been taking people out of their apartments so the firefighter can do their work to make sure that the water didn't affect the structure. Like, it's not only people that lives in basement as well, it's people in buildings in this neighborhood. So of course everything will be done to make sure that they are safe, a place to sleep, you know, that they are supported in terms of water and food. But at this point, it's in the broader area. People that are in their home don't have to boil the water. That's what I want to make this distinction. Have I seen this before? I'm kind of, oh yeah, Beaubien was huge last year. Beaubien, remember when it kind of, the street kind of fell apart, and we tend to forget, but there was a big water damage in downtown core. I remember it was I forgot when it was, but it affected the metro. Do you remember that? No, it was downtown. Anyway, I'll get back to you on exactly. But I mean, ultimately, though my memory is kind of failing at this point, I think it's important for Montrealers to know that how well we are prepared and equipped, because we are lucky enough to have firefighters and the public security as a whole. And this is what has been in function in the last week, and even during other times. So I think that Montreal can be proud and reassured.
Do we know around how many people have been evacuated? Just like rough.
We don't have that number right now. That's what we're doing.
Look at the cameras.
We don't have that. Which one? We don't have this number right now. That's why we're doing door to door to make sure that we know everyone who has to be evacuated. That's why we're doing this resizement right now.
Last question, Global. You're good?
Good.
CBC, good? Parfait. On va terminer ça ici. Les équipes doivent revenir pour les entrevues individuelles. Vous pouvez m'écrire pour les
On se reparle plus tard. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
So that ends the press
Catherine.
conference then. Thank you.
Catherine. Catherine. Another availability later or no?